Hi, good morning. This is Amy Rebecca, My Tribe Mondays. Really super excited today. We are joined by Christine Matus of the Matus Law Group in Toms River, New Jersey. Why am I bringing someone in from Toms River, New Jersey? I'm in Atlanta. That doesn't make sense. Why? Because Christine is awesome. Not only do I consider her to be a friend, but she is just a go-to in the community of special needs planning. And it is so important for us professionals to create huge communities, much larger than just my immediate community around me, because the need is so great and the community is so large and there's so many beautiful things to share out there. And Christine is joining us today, and we're going to talk about a very specific subject, third-party trust. But before we launch into this third-party trust that we're going to talk about, I would love for Christine to introduce herself to the My Tribe community. Thank you, Christine, for joining us.
Thank you so much, Amy, for inviting. I was so excited when I got the invitation, because not only is this topic such a big, important subject that really should be talked about more, should be educating more people, but it's also a personal subject. You know, I have a beautiful family. I have two beautiful girls, and my youngest was born with Down syndrome. So that's really the reason why I do what I do. It's personal to me. I love meeting other families who may have special needs members, and then we can share stories, grow together. And anything that I know and I have, I want to do and share with them. And I also equally learn so much from people like you, Amy, and from my clients and families who are not only atypical, but typical. I mean, we're all one family, all one tribe. I love what your message is. And typically what we love to do is just educate. And so this was just such a fantastic opportunity. And I'm so honored. Thank you so much, Amy.
Well, you're welcome, and really the appreciation is all mine. So let's get started on something I want to touch on. Though you mentioned, you have two beautiful daughters. One of your daughters has special needs, and so you were actually doing some of this planning and estate planning before. Is that?
That's right.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. Yes. We've been estate planners for a while now. I've been an attorney for, oh gosh, almost 2 decades. But in the big picture, we always want to help all different types of families, all different kinds of needs. But when we had realized that we were having a special blessing, a special gift into our family, it helped me focus what I wanted the firm to do. It helped me focus what our mission is. And really, it's a very simple mission of what we do with our firm. We really want people to feel better off than they did before they called us. Simple. That's it. But because of that mission, it really has helped me focus on the families that are close to my heart because of what we share, the experiences and the things that we share together and the challenges that we do. But again, we only grow from these things. But yes, and I've seen the changes, and there's been good changes in the law when it's to helping our special needs individuals. A lot of good things have happened in the last few years, which is great.
Yeah, I think it's amazing you have that perspective too as well. Professional, and then you have a personal, and then you have decided to grow, your firm in such a way that you're going to help others, who have this unique need. I would love for you to share with the My Tribe community what you have as your mission on your website, because I think it's pretty amazing.
Oh, I appreciate that, Amy. Well, it's something that I've grown into, something that we've always tried to figure out, well, really, what is our purpose here? And really, our purpose of our firm is to protect assets for families, especially those with special needs children, so that they could have a lifestyle they deserve. I mean, I say that, I live it, and it comes right out of me. And I hope that the passion and the energy that I feel and I show to my clients come through that statement. And it took a long time for that to come together, because how you feel and what you do, and then when you articulate it in words, they could be so totally different things. But it really did come together, and I'm very, very happy that my team at the Matus Law Group all believe in that mission and believe in that statement, because it's really what we try to do in everything we do. We're never here to make things more confusing. We're just here to give a path, give a solution, anything that we could do to at least educate and just make things a little bit easier, just a little bit every day.
So let's talk about that, because I do think even for other attorneys in our, that don't practice special needs law specifically and special needs legal planning, which is what the area of special needs law you and I focus on, it is a little scary. It's a little overwhelming. And, one of the missions I know you share as well is during this month of October, it's Special Needs Law Month. And so we're both bringing awareness to what is special needs law and what do we do in special needs law. And so that's what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about it. And, I mentioned in an earlier post, and you brought it up before we went on, we think of these as any kind of a trust whatsoever, as a box, right? And you build that box. And sometimes there are certain rules about how a box has to be built in order to make sure that it works properly. And then there are definitely ways that families can make that box unique to them, because their family is like no other on this earth. And we help them build that box so it helps their family in the way they need to. And we're going to talk about a very particular type of box today. And that box helps special needs communities, and that box specifically helps families who have other family members who have special needs, and that is called a third-party special needs trust.
Correct. And what's the nice thing is that we always try to tell our families, the good thing is we have options. We have tools, we have solutions. And so out of my little toolbox, one thing is called a third-party supplementary special needs trust. That's one of the tools that are very important and very useful. But if we don't understand it, or if we feel that we don't know how to use it, it could be intimidating because it's heavy language. The concepts can be a little bit intimidating, but that's what you and I are here for. We're to make sure we understand it, that it works, and it gives all of our families peace of mind, right? Because that's really it. The 2 a.m. wake up call that I still get sometimes, where you get these pangs of, are we doing enough? Are we protecting them? Do we have everything in place? And these are one of the most special tools that we can have, and it's so available. And unfortunately, I think it's one of the most underutilized tools out there for our families. So it's so important to talk about it today. And so I love what you're saying. It's a box, and in this box, I tell my families we could do so many things. And this particular box, we are making sure we're protecting certain things that we put in it, so that so our children could be still qualified for benefits. Because you and I know a lot of times our special needs families, we need to seek out benefits that'll help our children. Our children will need certain things like Medicaid or SSI. Those particular benefits are means-based, meaning we can only have a certain amount of assets. And so the issue is that if we do have a certain amount of assets that are over and we may not qualify, are there solutions? Why can't we have both worlds? Why can't we have both those governmental benefits and perhaps some type of asset that our loved one wants to provide to us? Because quite frankly, Amy, to live on government benefits alone, it's a hard life. It's a very hard life. And one of the other challenges that we've seen is that perhaps families say, well, we have a plan, Chris, and we don't intend our child to have any type of government benefits, which is fine. There really shouldn't be any connotation about receiving governmental benefits. But what I also try to educate our families is that sometimes these governmental benefits is the first step to getting different other types of programs, other types of, say, group housing, other programs could benefit. And we have a family that we were helping, and there were so many things that we could do for them. However, one of the first criteria when you look into each of these programs, we want to get into this type of group home, we want to get into this type of assisted living, the first thing they'll say is, are you Medicaid eligible? Are you? And eligible doesn't mean that you have to be receiving it, but have you applied and been entitled to it? And if we haven't even done that and we're not even qualified, it hurts our chances for really wonderful programs that are out there. So that's really one of the big things what I feel people need to be educated about, that it's not all about just receiving benefits. It's getting us in the door for other programs that can enrich lives.
Mhm. Let's take a step back and let's put a really good um, scenario, some faces, a family, a fictional family, to this idea of when it's appropriate to put a special needs trust in place. So you share with us like this fictional family where there is these family members, and then they step forward and they are, they don't see the benefit, they don't see the value. What would you do for that family? And let's first like talk about the family, and then let's talk about what you would talk to them about.
Sure. I mean, a typical family that we love to help are, we have a family that has children, and maybe one of them is special needs, that has a disability. And so we're trying to think of the future. Well, what will happen when, just ultimately, if one of us is unable to keep working, or if one of us, meaning mom or dad, or is unable to be around anymore, what will happen to them? How can we make sure they're taken care of? And typically, in a scenario when a parent passes away or a loved one passes away, there may be assets that you want to transfer to your loved ones. So, in a typical scenario, children would inherit. But if we have a child with a disability, with a special need, if they were to inherit directly from their loved one, there's implications of benefits that they could have received that they will no longer be receiving, or if they are currently receiving, they'll become disqualified. So, say we have Jane and Joe, and they have three kids, and one of them is special needs. God forbid something happens with Jane or Joe or both. The typical scenario is the children will inherit. But if little Susie has a disability and we were hoping in the future that she would be receiving benefits, that inheritance will be a big factor in her not receiving. Or if she is receiving some benefits, now this inheritance will disqualify her. So what do we do? Well, there are tools involved. And one of the special tools that we can create is a third party trust. And this type of trust is a box that we'll create. We can create it today, and we could say that if something happens to the parents, the assets that you're going to give little Susie, instead of going to little Susie directly, it will go to the supplemental needs trust of Susie. So it's the trust for Susie. And who's going to manage it? Well, if you create it today, mom and dad can manage that. But typically we have parents where we say, well, let's set it up so it'll take effect when something happens. But typically we don't need to have it set up today. And so we'll have it. And then we also have to think about, well, who's going to manage it when mom and dad is not around? And so that's what we have to think about, who our loved ones are, or are there organizations who can step up and perhaps give and guide the family to how to manage the trust. But when you have this tool, this wonderful tool, it will continue to give Susie enhancement to her life. There's assets in there that she could use to go on vacations, to use for education, for transportation. And yet she'll continue to be eligible for, say, Medicaid, have her health needs addressed by those things, have SSI to receive monthly payments. So she can have that. And again, you and I know, Amy, it sounds nice and simple, but that's really what it is, right? We want to make sure families understand this is the reason why we have these things. We create them because we're planning for the future, so that if something should happen to us, they continue to have that lifestyle, that love, and that life that we're planning for them to have. But without a plan, well, there are other tools that we could create, and they're not as clean, and there's implications with them. But this is the most basic type of plan, and it's called the third party. And you would have that, and I'll let you know we have it, right? So Jane and Joe is really me and my husband, Stephen, and our two kids, Emma and Juliana. And that's what we have. God forbid something happens to us. Our assets are going to be split to Emma and the supplements trust of Juliana. And
Mhm.
in there, we make sure those assets will grow and that she could use it, because you never know what will happen in the future. But I do know I want her to be qualified for benefits, if she's eligible and when she's eligible.
Mhm.
So that's really, in a nutshell, what I feel it's a very useful and important tool to have, Amy.
Mhm.
Um, I think you and I probably have had certain type of misconceptions with families that they'll come up with their own solution. But instead of having the trust, I've had one solution where they'll say, we'll just disinherit that child. Why don't we do that, Chris? So let's not mention that this child will receive anything. So one plan would say, we're not going to leave anything to the one child, little Susie. We'll give everything to the two kids. And they know they're going to
Mhm.
take care of little Susie. They know they'll do that. And you know what? It really could happen. It really could. But here are some of the issues. What if the other two kids get into car accidents, have credit problems, they're sued for some reason? The money that they're managing supposedly for little Susie is now in danger. It's now exposed. Our other issue is, in case if they are in some type of marital strife and now they have to have a dissolution of their marriage, that asset is now subject to divorce one way or the other. And nobody's going to buy that. It's not really my money. It's not my account. It was really for my sister. I have to say that's a tough call. That's tough, and there's a
I've
lot of
actually
wrangling.
I've actually had to write letters, because they put the inheritance, they did this, they put the inheritance into a bank account and they titled it caregiver, right?
Yeah,
But then I've written a letter in a divorce proceeding to try to help them establish it wasn't their money and it's not
right.
subject, to the creditors in the divorce. But yeah, yeah.
It's difficult. It's so
Difficult.
difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of the reasons. One of the other challenges we've also seen is where families feel, again, they probably won't want them to have any type of benefits. Chris, no, they're not going to need all those benefits. They don't need to apply. We're going to set them up very nicely. But the other issue is, protecting them from predators, people who
Right.
could take advantage of them. So it has nothing to do about being eligible for benefits, but we really want someone to guide them, be their trustworthy eyes and ears. And that's another very, very strong reason to have this type of trust. And that's a big thing that we also express to families. Set aside qualifying for benefits and things like that. But we do want some guidance. We do want someone to mind the accounts and make sure the assets are being used the way it should be, and that they're not going to be depleted in some foolish manner, by people who take advantage of them.
Yeah, I think, so in discussing with families sometimes, the value that they can have from this trust, and we sort of mentioned it a little bit before the show, this is like a small little tool, right? It seems large, right? A trust, just the word trust is like, a heavy word for many families, but it is a small tool that keeps them eligible for, their life. So it's a small little tool right now that can swing a really huge door for this family and change the absolute trajectory for not just the family, not just the family member with special needs, but the community around them. Because, you know, sometimes the community is not as well equipped to support.
Correct. Correct.
And if you can plan to support that family member and create, a small tool like this, you're putting actually less stress on the community as well.
Absolutely. And
Mm-hmm.
one thing we didn't even talk about is, why do they call it third party, right?
Yeah.
So there are different types of special needs trust. In this situation, when we say third party, it's because the funds for that trust, for that box, is coming from a source other than the special needs person, other than the disabled persons. They're not theirs. So in my situation, if we were to fund the trust for our daughter, it's third party because it came from originally funds from my husband and I, and we're providing it at a later date. That's third party. You always try to figure out where's the money coming from, and that's how you'll decide what type of trust it should go into, right? But that's, to me, one of the important things. And one of the important things about this trust, Amy, really, is that there is no what they call a payback clause. What is that? So payback meaning if we put funds in this trust and later date there is a situation where the disabled individual is no longer here and there's funds still left in this trust, a third party special needs trust allows you who created it to designate where does the balance go. So in our situation, we would have it go to our other child, or we can have it go to a charity, and we still have control over that. Another type of special needs trust, and unfortunately, we've seen also these trusts been put together by perhaps people who may have found something online or maybe was being helped by someone who may not be as well versed as you and I, and the trust indicates that that leftover money goes back to the state. No, no, no. No, no, no. And that's a big deal. And that's the first thing I look at when people ask me to review their trust. I have to situate myself and say, okay, is this a third party? All right. Is there a payback? There shouldn't be. And if there is, it's not a well-written trust. It's not going to work for what they wanted it to do. And that's a big deal. You have to look for that. And I ask my families, please, if you had it done by in the last few years, whoever's done it, I'm hoping it's done fantastically well. Please look for that payback clause. And if it's not there, good. If it's there, you need to call someone like us, someone like you and myself, Amy, to fix that immediately.
So that brings up a really good point. And you didn't necessarily say this, but you mentioned other family members of yours, right? So one of the things that I've been seeing more and more and doing more and more is the aunt who has no children of her own, wanting to make sure she takes care of a family member, say a niece, a nephew, a great niece, a great nephew who has special needs, and they're at a loss because when they came to me, they have very well intentions, but then they get confronted with this idea of, well, we need to take a step back and look at how we could take care of that individual. And so sometimes you actually have to work with not just the family, the immediate family, say, for example, you and your husband who have your daughter, right? But you need to talk with or make sure that grandparents, aunts and uncles, good close family friends, godparents, who want to make sure that that child is loved and supported for the rest of their life, we got to be careful.
Absolutely. That's such a great point, Amy, because we have quite a number of files in our office where well-intentioned relatives, well-intentioned neighbors have left sums of money to a person, a child, or even adult, not knowing they had a disability or because they had this disability, but not knowing that they should not have put it in their name directly. It's caused some issues. There are solutions. I always tell my families, we have a solution. But it is much better that if you can educate your family members of how we should name that loved one, if they're a beneficiary of life insurance, if you're going to name them in your will, there's a way to do it. So the solutions to fix it, we don't have to address. It would fall right into place to your third party trust. So one of the things we make sure is that, once we create this, please, talk to your family members, tell them what you've done. It's an exciting thing. It's a good thing. And let them know that if they had planned to do something nice for your child, let them know there's a way to phrase it. You and I, we create certificates of trust, and in it will say, this is how it's named, this is how it's titled, and this is how you need to just update the papers to make sure it reflects that. But on the other side of it is that if it's not done, sure, there's solutions, but sometimes the solutions aren't that great. There's implications that we need to address. So it's much better if they know ahead of time. But great point, Amy. Notifying family members, big deal, very big deal.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that you mentioned is as well is. Sometimes I have the same situation where a family member comes in and they say, well, I've taken care of this. I'm giving everything to the brother or the sister, or the brothers and sisters know to take care of their sister who has special needs and who will never be able to live independently, will definitely need someone, helping them for the rest of their life. And I think that is beautiful, and I know that those brothers and sisters will do everything in their power. But sometimes as the person who has the ability to plan. It's better to really just make clear who's going to be doing what role in the future and having the conversation up front, because sometimes we don't know where those families are going to be, and some of these are changeable. In a third party trust, we can adjust that third party trust if someone, if one of these brothers or sisters' lives change a little bit. We can make those adjustments easily, but for the most part, having it really clear and clean, it actually is the most beneficial for that family and family relationships moving forward.
That's so good.
Yeah, and especially the way I see it, it causes the least amount of disruption for that child. Because depending on what the disability is, disruption can really be a major health event, a major event for that child with special needs, and to withstand the change already that they're losing a loved one.
Absolutely. That's a very good point, Amy. And one of the things we've been also introducing to families is that, once we create these types of plans, I encourage the trustees that we meet with them. We try to give them a handbook, to give them an overview of what their role is as a trustee if they were to step in the shoes. But the big thing is that we like to make sure that if they have questions, come in. Let's talk about, let's just go over the basics of what is expected of them and what will happen when maybe the worst could happen. It doesn't have to be as bad as we were expecting it to be. So that's one of the keys. I agree with you wholeheartedly that, explaining what everyone's path is, what's expected of them. I think that helps ease, because you never want to create this tool and then make them feel more anxious, saying, oh my gosh, now what do we have with this thing? And to have them feel like, okay, now we have a resource, now we know what this can do, and we have an idea of, where it could have, where maybe there's any limitations, but what the good things it could do for a loved one. One thing I wanted to bring up too, Amy, I don't know if you face some of these issues. So we'll have a family that really wants to have this type of trust, that sees the value of it and knows that this is going to be good for their child, but the issue is a trustee. That's where we see a lot of obstacles. And I should say that, typically it is nice to have a family member, but there are things to be aware of. Is that family member willing? Is that family member capable, to understand the things that have to be done? There's paperwork to be filed, and there's an understanding of how this trust works. So there are times we are looking to have someone else come in, an advisor or a company that could help at least work alongside the family member. There are things to consider, like cost, and also, like you said, for that loved one, to have someone involved that they may not be familiar with. So I love the idea of having a family member. And if that family member would like to bring in a professional, I think if that option is on the table, they should take advantage of it. But I like having someone familiar for that loved one. Again, just thinking from my point of view, it would be nice to have that in-between person to relay the messages of what's going to happen or what we're doing, rather it coming from a phone call or for someone that they're not familiar with. There's wonderful organizations out there that will close that gap. If there really isn't a loved one, they'll come in and be that person, and they'll step up. I have quite a number of organizations that we're so proud to be associated with that will do that, but there's not enough of them. And it also depends on the family, but I've seen that, Amy, and it is very hard, because sometimes we know what they have to do, and they'll say, well, we're in it for now, Chris. For the alternate, I don't know. And I don't know. There's options, but they're not great. And it's really up to the family to decide, and we'll help as much as we can. Colleen Clark's another lawyer in our office. We brainstorm about this. We reach out to people in the community who could help out. We do everything we can, because it hurts knowing that they have a tool, and maybe we'll have that initial trustee, but who's going to be the alternate? So we really, really try to brainstorm about this. And I don't know if you've come up with certain solutions or if you've come up with these problems yourself, Amy.
Yeah, I think the same conversations happen. And I work with a lot of women who are single parents and, have special needs children. And they struggle. they struggle greatly with that exact question. And, you know, I speak with them about the same things, and I too have relationships with certain professionals in the community where, you know, it would be a good fit. One of the things that we do is we try to connect that mom to that trusted professional now, and see if they can start talking and getting a feel for just what, you know, how that feels. Because, you know, one of the things, and you know this on a personal level, and I know this from watching, you know, the community and sitting down across the table with these families, is the amount of advocacy that a parent of a child with special needs is so above and beyond what most people recognize, understand, and appreciate. And they're so invested in the advocacy. And then the idea of passing that on too, you know, to someone who is not a family member, is daunting and overwhelming. And so we try to just have someone from the community who is part of an organization that would help this family, like, sit at our conference room table, talk to them about certain, you know, when this would happen, this is how we've handled it, and this would happen. And to whatever extent, sometimes it's helpful.
Yes.
At the end of the day, the family has to decide, you know, really does have to decide. And what I always tell them is, you know, right now, let's look at our best options, and other options could present themselves, but let's put that foundation in place right now.
Absolutely. One of the basic terms I've always said to my family, I'd rather us have something than nothing. I'd rather us keep moving forward instead of standing still. Analysis by paralysis. You know, we keep moving. Let's take that momentum. Let's keep going, because it's all good things. It's all good things. Don't let it stop you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So my lights are automatic. You can see my lights went out. There you go.
That's great. And there was light.
Yeah, there was light. So it's like a green building, so they go out automatically.
Okay.
Well, I have so appreciated that, and I really hope that others have been able to benefit from this. I can't wait to reshare this, and I will definitely make sure that it's somewhere that you can share it as well.
Absolutely.
And get this out there this month. I know you are hosting some really incredible events this month in honor. It's not only Special Needs Law Month, but it is also Down Syndrome Awareness Month during the month of October.
Mm-hmm. So every day or every other day or so throughout the month of October, we like to share some basic facts and fun facts about Down syndrome and things that people may have heard, some misconceptions. So look out for that on our Facebook page. And the other thing too, Amy, you know, we have a book that we'd love to give to anybody if they're interested. Just send a message. It's Basic Estate Planning for those with special needs children. It's a nice little booklet, nice and easy read. It probably summarizes a lot of things you and I spoke about. And it's in the easy, you know, nice, easy fashion. So nothing heavy. It's not a tome or an encyclopedia for everyone to take a look at. But it's our pleasure to do that, or they can download it on our website, matuslaw.com. But this was so good, Amy. I really appreciate it. And, you know, love sharing insight with you and seeing that some of the challenges that you've seen, we've seen. But I think what I love is that we're both solution oriented. We're always thinking about what we can do to move our families forward. And there really are great solutions. And there's so much more. I mean, you know, you and I probably could talk all weekend about this. So, but it's a fantastic opportunity to at least show parents, take a look at it. Third-party planning, it's a very good thing to see, very good thing to look into. It will not hurt.
Absolutely. And we will make sure that we drop in the comments of this, how to contact Christine, how to contact her firm, how to get that incredible resource that she is offering to anyone free. It sounds like it's bite-sized, easy to read, not at all intimidating, because this can be, and we are definitely here both up there in New Jersey and down here in the state of Georgia to help make something that seems complicated and overwhelming to be a really simple, straightforward tool to help your family swing big doors with a little hinge.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Amy. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank everyone for joining us today. If you did not have a chance to catch us live, we will be reposting and resharing it. It is available on the Atlanta Wills and Trust Law Group website, and we're going to make sure that it's available to Christine and her community as well. Again, I love having the My Tribe community here. I love having guests like Christine. And if you have any questions for either Christine or myself, you can drop them in the comments and we'll be monitoring them and we'll make sure that they get responded to. Anything else, Christine?
Thanks, Amy. Oh, no, we're great. Everyone have a great day. And remember, always think of the solutions.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.